Good to go. Uvlalotuk, good morning. Waka winga kenagnagiagak upiyugak. I said, hello everyone, good morning. My English name is Emily Eden Shaw. My Yupik name is Kenagnagiagak. I am Yupik and Inupiaq from Emonic, Alaska. So right up there, or right here. So handy dandy Alaska map right there. I am the granddaughter of John and Cecilia Sipri and the great-granddaughter of Pearlie and Axel Johnson. On behalf of the Alaska Native Heritage Center's board and staff, I'd like to welcome Dr. Dillingham, our honorable dignitaries, and our special guest here today. As I was preparing my 5-minute speech, and I promised Virginia I'll stay within 5 minutes, a memory came to me that I felt really called to share with everyone. When I was around 18 years old, I really started searching for my biological family, and one of my first memories of finding my roots involved the census. I'll never forget working with my auntie, and she showed me a 1900 census as well as World War I draft paperwork. And on the 1900 census, it had my great-grandfather listed on there, and next to his name, it said mixed. And then when I looked at the draft paperwork, it had his name listed, and he was listed as white, even though he was an Inupiaq. I remember feeling really confused and really heartbroken that that was his reality. But I'll never forget having the conversation with my auntie when she said, mixed, almost as if he's a breed of something. And I'm sharing that with you today because it's always stayed with me. I wonder if that's how my great-grandfather felt when he went through that experience. Now, I'm sure many of you would agree today that we've come a long way since then. But I'm sure many of you in the room today would also agree that we have a long way to go. And what I mean by that is, I started my position here on December 1st. And it wasn't until I started my position until I realized just how far we had come. And in December 1st, 2019, we hosted about 25 Alaska Native language warriors here. And they are the ones responsible for translating the census, not only into Yupik and Inupiaq, but also Gwich'in and Athabaskan. And I remember feeling incredibly honored and just very humbled that they were doing this historic work in our facility. I remember leaving home or driving home from work that day, and I had the biggest smile on my face. And what occurred to me and what dawned on me is that I was smiling because my children are never going to have to live in a world where the census is telling them that they're mixed. That my children get to live in a world where our Alaska Native languages are not only celebrated, but shared, even in the census. And so as I shared with your staff yesterday, Dr. Dillingham, I'm very, very thankful that the census is here. I believe with every ounce of my being that the census is doing it the right way. And trust me, that matters when it's been done wrong for a very long time. I also want to commend you for not only coming to Anchorage, but also going out to Toksook Bay. I'm going to forewarn you, though, you may never want to leave. I don't know how many people I've met who have come to Alaska, who've been here for 20 plus years, and they've said, oh, I came up here for one meeting, and then they've never left, right? So you've been forewarned. So I know I only have 5 minutes, but I do want to end by saying that I truly hope you have a productive trip out to Toksook Bay. I also hope that you enjoy your tour later on today at the Alaska Native Cultural Charter School. And if you happen to run into an 8th grader there named Anya Tyrell, please tell her mother says hello. Now, as customary, we would like to acknowledge the land which the Alaska Native Heritage Center resides on, and so it's my honor to invite up Aaron Leggett, who is Dena'ina Athabaskan and the president of the Native Village of Eklutna. Welcome, everyone.
Yaliathanda she de Aaron Leggett Gashtanak, she chada Dena'ina, she no chinethlan idla ratschkachti, stukta Rick Leggett, shunkta Diane Bowles, She'u, Cheyenne Beatty. Welcome everybody. Again, my name is Aaron Leggett. I'm the president of the Native Village of Eklutna, or chief, and it's my honor to welcome you to our traditional homeland, the Dena'ina Elfnena. The Native Village of Eklutna is the only federally recognized tribe in the municipality of Anchorage. And since we're here talking about census and statistics and numbers, our little tribe has about, give or take, 300 members. Out of the 300,000 people that live in our traditional homeland here in Anchorage. So we represent 0.001% of the entire population. And if you were to come here until very recently, you would have no idea that the Dena'ina existed. I don't know, people, I guess, thought that in 1915, when the railroad selected its headquarters, that they were moving into this empty, pristine landscape. But that's not true. This is the homeland of my people. And in thinking about the census, I think about the fact that, as Emily mentioned, for a very long time, it had been done quite poorly. And this can be quite frustrating for a variety of reasons, not only for genealogical purposes, but even for things about self-governance and tribal sovereignty, when you have to constantly fight to reassert your authority on what should be better recorded data. But that's where we are, or that's what we've had, and that's not where we have to go. So I think it's very important that the census matters and everybody is counted. And I really want to commend the U.S. Census for coming to Alaska and recognizing the unique challenges that we face here. And I know it sounds a little strange, but when we describe Alaska, really we're talking about more of a geographic region. The 360 million acres here in Alaska represents about 1/5 the size of the continental United States. So it seems to me that a significant amount of resources for such a large area should be dedicated to making sure that we all count. So, Chinan, thank you. You came here today, and I hope you guys have a wonderful visit. Thank you.
Thank you, Emily, and thank you, Aaron, for that. Hello, everyone. Good morning. I'm Michael Cook, Chief of the Public Information Office at the U.S. Census Bureau. I'd like to thank you for being here today and wish you a good morning. And the census is here, and on behalf of all the census staff here, as well as the census staff across the country, I know that many of you have traveled far and near to come. This is a high day. In the next couple of days, we'll start that first enumeration. So I'd like to thank you for coming. With us today, in addition to our director, Steve Dillingham, we have Governor Mike Dunleavy, as well as Gabe Lehman, who's from the Alaska Census Working Group. So without further delay, I'd like to introduce our director, Director Steve Dillingham.
Thank you so much. It's an exciting day. I'm so pleased to be here. You couldn't ask for a more beautiful view and more historic and informative location. And I just went on the tour, and I learned so much, but it really reminds me how much more I have to learn. Well, this is, in fact, the first enumeration for this 2020 decennial census, and it's a very historic event, and we're all honored to be here. We have a large team here from the Census Bureau, and I'm not going to recognize them all, but I hope that you'll have the opportunity to talk with Julie Lamb, the regional director, and her team, Tim Olson, the head of our operations, and his team, and the others that are here, many of whom have spent many years working with the partners that we have here in Alaska. But most importantly, I would like to thank and to welcome some very special guests. And first, Governor Mike Dunleavy. And I know he's a previous educator, and my family has a number of educators, like my wife and daughter. And that is a extremely valuable perspective. And I guess I was an educator once. I'm not sure these days, but I very much appreciated at the university setting also educating the college students. but as an educator, you fully understand how valuable census data is. And census data helps us to build knowledge, and that knowledge is the foundation for education. So I know the governor is particularly attuned to those needs as well as the many needs. While in his role as governor, I want to thank him for his leadership. I want to thank Gabe Lehman for his leadership and for all the support they're giving the 2020 census. I also want to give a big thanks to Aaron Leggett for the remarks that he gave, and to Emily, Director Emily Indenshaw for her opening remarks at this tremendous facility. I understand that if the weather permitted, we could go out and visit some authentic Alaskan housing, and it may be practice the count there, but I'm not sure we'll get many volunteers today. I also want to thank, I understand Mayor Berkowitz may be here, and I know there are others. Nicole Borromeo I saw and appreciate her being here, but there's many, many people, and appreciate you all for being here. The state of Alaska has been an incredible supporter of the 2020 census, especially recently when my prior visit, and I became aware of the bipartisan resolution that was passed to ensure the 2020 census, that it's fair and accurate, and a statement of support. And it wasn't long ago that the U.S. Senate did that. On a bipartisan basis, the United States Senate passed a resolution supporting and commending the 2020 census, and we're working with the House to see if they would like to do the same. But I can tell you right now that over 95% of the members of Congress already have pledged to be our partners. Now, the resolution encourages, the Alaskan resolution encourages individuals, families, and households and others to take part in the 2020 census, and that's what we're here today to remind everyone in this great state of Alaska. It recognizes that the 2020 census is a civic responsibility and duty, and encourages everyone to participate in the 2020 census. I also want to give a big thanks to the State Complete Count Commission and all the work they're doing. I'm told that Darren Deacon and Jordan Schilling are exercising leadership in that effort. The work from the state complete count committees, sometimes at the state level called commissions, is so important to get this decennial count. Nationally, and I saw the figures this morning with Tim Olson, we're almost at 9,000 complete count committees across this nation. So literally, and some states have more than 200 that I've been to, more than 200 complete count committees of all sizes. Some are size a dozen, some are more than 100 in size. So I want to thank the Alaska Municipal League in encouraging Alaskans to be accounted. Their effort is a great one. Especially, I did get to my previous visit to go to Delta Junction. Tremendous efforts that were going on there, and I very much appreciated the mayor, the city manager, and the officials, and visited the library, which is so important there and for the 2020 census, as well as the historic lodge that we went to and saw the history, some of the history that's reflected here today. There was some actually in that lodge. I'd also like to thank the Alaska Public Interest Research Group and their efforts in using funds to support Indigenous language translation for 2020 census materials and language guides. And sometimes with the various languages, it's a difficult thing, and we appreciate the efforts and the partnership and the contributions made by people here today and made by the various Alaskan communities. Now, someone showed me an article maybe it was 2 days ago. There was an article about how diverse Anchorage is, one of the most diverse cities in this country. So it's very important we get the languages down and that we reach out to all the communities, and the efforts here are truly amazing. In addition, I'd like to thank Molly of Denali, the PBS Kids program created by WGBH, which I'm told is the PBS station that's housed in Boston, but brought into the community by the Alaskan Public Media and KUAC of the University of Alaska Fairbanks. Molly of Denali is the first nationally distributed children's series to feature an Alaska Native lead character. This partnership I've got to go back and see some of these reruns too, because I haven't been watching as much TV as I'd like lately. But this partnership helps to highlight our commitment to counting young children, not only in remote Alaska, but across the country. Counting those who are in hard-to-reach villages has been a challenge for the Census Bureau every decade since 1870. Here in Alaska, we have these very special challenges. As was mentioned, the geography is so vast, and I think I've seen these diagrams where you stretch the map of Alaska, and I think it reaches from the east coast to the west coast, if you were to superimpose it on the nation. But there are large portions of Alaska that are not connected by roads. I've learned that from my last visit. And there's a challenging mail service and a host of challenges that we are working and prepared to meet. Since joining the Union as the 49th state in 1959, and I was in elementary school then, and I actually remember it, Alaska's vast, sparsely settled areas and most remote parts of the most northern state in our country gets a head start on the national count. These areas are traditionally the first to be counted, and that's continuing with the 2020 census. Our goal is to count everyone once, only once, and to count them in the right place. And we're making available to people and using people and giving people multiple options on how to respond and making sure that they take the extra steps to reach people that have special challenges or circumstances. And that's why the first enumeration is so important. It kind of sets the tone for the rest of the nation. In remote Alaska, the local census takers must get a head start because the ground is frozen. And actually the frozen ground, I'm told, and I haven't been here, but I'm told that that actually increases the accessibility of some of these areas. And our census takers will be using small planes, as I will be in a couple of days, or snowmobiles, which I'm uncertain of, but maybe that's what I'm going to do as well. We must make sure we count residents who may leave for before the spring thaw, when they go back to either fish or hunt or to take maybe warm weather jobs. But it's important that we reach them. And it's very important that we do this before leading up to the actual, what we call Census Day on April 1st. For the last 3 censuses, the Census Bureau has selected a remote Alaskan Native village as the location for the first enumeration. In 2010, it was Norvik, and I'm told that you're familiar with that location, Governor. And in a few days, we'll begin in the first count in Alaska, in the village of Toksook Bay, and I'm told the federally recognized tribe name of Nunakoi Yagamute. The small village in the Bering Sea is home to about 661. Now, we say about 661. Sounds like we have a count, an existing count, but we'll have to see if we have to update that number when we get out there and actually do the count. And finally, the residents of Anchorage, Fairbanks, and the other relatively large cities here in Alaska will respond to the 2020 census online, by phone, or mail in mid-March with the rest of the country. Now, I'm reminding people more and more because the census is beginning. It's right here. It is now. And I remind, this is a national census. It's not a Census Bureau undertaking. Sure, we play an important role in the central responsibilities, but it never has been a federal agency undertaking. And when they sent the first federal marshals out in 1790, and it took longer than expected, they found twice as many people living in the nation then. It was a smaller nation. But twice as many people as they expected. But they couldn't have documented those people, and actually they had to get some extensions. I know one state they got an extension, that because you had to have the support of those states and of those communities and those families and those individuals to get a complete and accurate count. So we remind everyone, we all have this responsibility. And before we ask anyone to respond, we need your help. A successful census demands your help. Everybody needs to be part of this process. So we need to build a team that's going to help us do the count. And of course, you've seen, and I saw a commercial in the Alaskan Airlines magazine. I saw a commercial on TV last night. Other people are telling me they're seeing more advertising and more commercials, but we're still pushing recruiting. Now, Tim Olson is here. He showed me the numbers this morning. We're at about 1.8 million applicants. And our goal is to get somewhere near 2.66, I think, or 2.67 might be the actual. It's a very ambitious goal. We hope we exceed that. And out of that, we will hire between 300 and 500,000 people to actually go out and conduct the enumeration. But these are well-paying positions. This morning I learned that here in Alaska, it's $28 an hour. That's a pretty good salary, especially for many people. We're recruiting college students, et cetera. They have college loans. Maybe they don't want perhaps to borrow as much. And other people out there, retirees and others, that's a well-paying salary for a part-time temporary job. And we need assistance from every community across the nation. We need these census takers to help us. Now, right now, we're asking people to go online and apply. And Tim's figures this morning showed that Alaska's in really good shape, but more are needed. We want more, but Alaska is really looking good in compared to other parts of the nation. And we want to have people from those areas and know it best, from the villages, from those areas that know it best, know the languages, know the people, and are the trusted voices. And that is, in fact, what we need and what we're aiming for. So we want the broadest possible number of applicants representing the talents and the languages that are needed. So we're promoting these, and we ask that you go out there. Please consider your friends and relatives and others you know and your organizations to help us with the census, help conduct it, and help promote the census, and share the message with all the people with whom you work and your family and your friends and any others. So also remind them that it's not just a job. It's an opportunity to make history. This is a historic moment. It is provided by the Constitution. It is conducted every 10 years. This will be the biggest census ever, in many ways perhaps the most complicated, and with the newest tools and technologies being employed in different ways. But ask them, please, to go to our website at 2020census.gov/jobs and be part of this historic moment, this historic count. Now, this month, we unveiled the 2020 Census Communications Campaign in Washington. We had the media there. We had congressional staff there. We had a lot of our partners there. I think it was a great, successful event, and some of our people that participated are here today. It represents our outreach strategy for reaching everyone in the country to ask them to respond to the 2020 census. This is the most comprehensive campaign launched ahead of any census, where we have developed thousands of examples of creative work. And I might say, and I also saw this morning, the count that we had on our partnerships. And right now, and this is before we start the national census in mid-March and before April 1st, we have 187,000 partners across this country today. I think we will, is this still on? Can you hear? I think if the microphone's on or not, I think we're going to at least double that. So our communications theme is Shape Your Future, Start Here. It's the foundation of the advertising and communications about the 2020 census. The message reflects comprehensive research that showed that people around the country are motivated when they understand many of the benefits and learn how it helps them and their families and their communities. Lastly, I will acknowledge that all the hard work, diligent planning, and coordination that has occurred and continues and will continue till we complete the census, with the collaboration done by all the partners and participants and stakeholders here in Alaska. And we at Census very much appreciate that and the amazing efforts and results that we're getting. And working with our partnership specialist staffs and working with our area census office, which I'll be visiting again this afternoon, and working with Alaskans everywhere across the state. The 2020 census, it's your census. Its success depends on you and your responses, and by working together, I know we can achieve the most accurate count ever. I want to thank you for your strong and continuous support as we march toward a complete and accurate count. Thank you so much. Oh, I think, Mike, I'm very honored to introduce the governor of this great state and the one who is exercising leadership and expressing support across this great state and to all its communities, and a former educator, Governor Dunleavy. Thank you so much.
Well, it's a, I always have to adjust the mic. It's a honor to be here today. It really is. And yeah, you happen to start doing the census in probably the most beautiful state in the country. You know, it is the largest by far. I always tell people this: we're the furthest northern state, right? Furthest western state, furthest eastern state. Think about that for a moment, okay? The only thing we are is we're not the furthest southern state. Yeah. But it's an amazing state, and it's appropriate that we're here today, starting the census and having the discussion here in this beautiful center, because it does embody and represent our Alaska Native folks and culture history, which is very much alive today. Alaska has over highest percentage of American natives. Alaska has 15.3% and growing, a growing population of Alaska Native folks here. And our folks are all over the state of Alaska. And you're starting this census in Toksook Bay, I think, is the right place to start. And I want to urge everybody, as the director said, this is a very important exercise. This is something that should not be overlooked, because what it will do is give an accurate count. And that accurate count is going to help with representation. And not just political representation, but also representation for programs that are going to be vital for Alaskans. So it's critical, starting here. It's very important that we do this right and we get an accurate count. It's going to benefit all Alaskans if we do that. So you want to urge your friends, your family, and your neighbors to make sure that they do participate in the census. The information is private. It's not going to be shared with other folks. It's not going to be used against the people that are filling out the forms online or in person. But it's absolutely critical. And so I just want to urge everyone to partake in this. We in the state are going to do our part to support the activities of those doing the census. But in the end, we'll get an accurate count that's going to help all Alaskans. And again, I'm honored to be here. I'm honored that this discussion is happening here in this beautiful center. And I'm honored that the census count in this country is starting in one of our small communities in Western Alaska. I think it's appropriate that that happens. And I look forward to having all Alaskans partake in this and making sure that Alaska has an accurate count. So with that, I want to thank you. And once again, it's an honor to be here. Thank you.
Thank you, Governor Dunleavy, for being here. And as the governor stated, the census is a national count that the Census Bureau is charged with administering, but that count is done at the local level. And so it's not something that's done to you, but it's something that people participate in. And so with that, I'd like to introduce Mr. Gabe Lehman, who is with our Alaska Census Working Group. Thank you, Gabe.
Well, good morning, everyone. I will do my best to keep it brief because apparently, Director, they turn off the microphone at some point. So my name is Gabriel Lehman. I am the chair of the Alaska Census Working Group. I'm also the chief operating officer for Cook Inlet Housing Authority here in Anchorage. As someone who has worked on census-related issues since 2013, I want to begin today by just saying how excited I am that we are finally here. It's pretty amazing how far we've come. As chair of the Alaska Census Working Group, I want to start by thanking the Foraker Group, Alaska's statewide nonprofit association, for convening our nonpartisan effort. And I want to thank our members, which include private businesses, nonprofits, government entities, and tribal organizations all across the state, as well as our critical funding partners for being so invested in getting a complete count in 2020. This has been an incredibly collaborative effort, and it's also been a showcase of what we are able to do when we come together for our state, for our communities, and for our people. As a lifelong Alaskan, I can assure you that I am just as skeptical as anyone else when someone comes knocking on my door, clipboard in hand, especially when that someone is a representative of the federal government. But I've also had the unique privilege to work with members of the Census Bureau's team for the past several years. And in particular, I want to call out some of the Alaskan partnership specialists. Donna Bach is in the audience, Barb Miranda, Keisha Lafayette. Yes, these are federal employees, but first and foremost, they are Alaskans who I can assure you care extremely deeply about our communities. I also want to personally thank Director Dillingham and the Census Bureau, not just for hiring Alaskan Partnership Specialists, but as Dr. Dillingham mentioned, doing a lot of work to try to recruit Alaskan enumerators who know our communities. But unfortunately, the Census Bureau's reach and resources are limited. They can't do it all. And knowing this, concerned Alaskans came together several years ago and formed the Alaska Census Working Group. And just this last year, we launched the Alaska Counts Education Initiative that has one very important goal, and that's to just make sure that every single Alaskan understands that the census is easy to complete, that it is entirely safe and confidential, and that it is critical for our communities. Every single year, $3.2 billion, that's billion with a B, in federal resources are allocated in our state on the basis of Census Bureau data. Think about that. That's money that's used for bridges and roads. That's resources that help with school lunch programs and public safety. And we're not talking about impacts that last for a year or 2 years. The impacts are felt for a decade. So to spread these important messages, the Alaska Census Working Group has been really focused on outreach, communication, and translation activities. We've managed to develop a suite of resources, including everything from social media graphics to toolkits to posters that help Alaskans do census-related outreach in a manner that's effective and accurate. Because the Census Bureau isn't able to do outreach to post office boxes, we've taken on that responsibility ourselves, and we're sending out a series of mailers that will go to all of Alaska's 88,000 post office boxes. And because outreach needs to be done in a way that is locally relevant, we've been able to provide mini grants to community organizations throughout the states so that they can do outreach in ways that matter in their own communities. Perhaps most critically, we recognize that the Census Bureau is not able to translate census materials into any Alaska Native languages. So with the leadership of one of the Alaska Census Working Group's core partners, the Alaska Public Interest Research Group, we've been able to translate census materials into 4 key Alaska Native languages. The Alaska Public Interest Research Group convened a panel, multiple panels of Alaska Native language speakers, not just from all over Alaska, but from far-flung parts of the United States. And they did this translation work and then actually recorded public service announcements in several of those languages. We've got a game plan going forward. There's a lot of work left to be done. And in particular, we have a lot of work to do to support partners like the Alaska Federation of Natives that have taken on really critical boots-on-the-ground outreach in communities across our state. Alaska is a big place, and the census is a massive operation. When we started this work, we looked around to see what had been done by people that came before us, and the full sum of the resources we had at our disposal was a single one-page coffee-stained photocopy of notes from a brainstorming session that took place in 2009. And today, we have built out an entire library, a suite of resources that will exist in perpetuity and give Alaska a huge head start in 2030 and 2040 and beyond. We understand that the census can feel really big and really bureaucratic, but when you stop and you think about it, the census is about people. It's about communities. And so there's a lot at stake for us, and whether you decide to individually sign up to become an enumerator or you just take time to talk with your family around the dinner table about the census, it's imperative that every single one of us meets our personal civic obligation to ensure that our fellow Alaskans understand that the census is easy to complete, it's entirely safe and confidential, and it's really critical for years and years to come. So with that, I want to say thank you to everyone who is here today, and I really want to thank all of the census champions in the audience and beyond for the work that you are doing to ensure that we get an accurate count in 2020. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Gabe. Thank you. Thank you. And I'd like to thank all of our guests today who have given commentary on the complete and accurate count that we're going to have here in Alaska in the next couple of days or in the coming days. I'd like to invite those of you who are here today to take part and to witness some of the creative that's been put together, the advertisements, the PSAs in our theater room here. I'd also like to again thank Emily for opening up the space for us to come here. Isn't this a beautiful facility? So with that, I'd like to thank you for coming and to remind everyone to stay connected and to visit our website, 2020.census.gov, to help shape your future, because it starts here with the 2020 census. Thank you, everyone. Thank you. For the media that's in the room, I'd like to let you know that you can come forward. We're going to have a quick Q&A. We're going to make available people from the Census Bureau to answer your programmatic questions about the complete and accurate count of Alaska. If you can stay seated, we're going to put a mic stand up front for you to ask your questions. Director Dillingham, as well as a couple of our other individuals here, will answer some questions about the programmatic aspects of the 2020 census. So give us a moment. We'll make people available, and I'll make some introductions so that you can get those names correct, okay? Give us 1 second.